Hi, my name is Benedict for Higher Hertz. This video is a big and complex one, and it's about trying to answer the eternal question that you see over and over again: what's the best DAW for beginners? And that's equally quite related to what's the best DAW, which is equally related to what's the best insert whatever. And there are a couple of ways we can approach this. The common way this gets approached is people list their favourite thing, and they say that's the best because they like it. Okay, it's the best for them, and great. But it doesn't really solve the problem. The real problem is actually in the question. It sort of gets, much into philosophy. I guess I look at it this way. Those who are most vehemently opposed to what I have to say tend to be those who probably have the least amount of output. Those most likely to agree, or at least consider what I have to say having value, tend to have more output. So if you're coming into this game to do stuff, then perhaps the point of view that I'm about to give you is going to be worthwhile. So in answering the question, what is the best DAW for beginners, let's start by saying, well, what is the best? Let's start by taking the best off the table, actually, because it's a floating thing based on a whole lot of criteria, possibly none of which are related to me, but they sure are to you. So you have to work out what is important to you before you can say this suits this better than that. Now, we'll run through a few things right at the beginning. There's the Tanz-Tafel law. Now, I was taught the Tanz-Tafel law when I was in grade 11 in economics. And I remember my economics teacher, the wonderful Mr. Jones, telling us about the Tanz-Tafel law. It stands for there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. And it's a saying that goes back quite a long time. I think it's to the Depression, where bars started to give away free salty food to get people to come in and buy beer. And obviously the food was salty to make people need to drink. So people would come in and go, oh, well, I can just get a free lunch here. Meanwhile, they kind of got themselves conned into buying alcohol because that was how the bar planned to earn money. Beer nuts are a continuation of the Tanz-Tafel practice. So the Tanz-Tafel law actually constantly tries to remind us that when people say that there is something better that's coming for free or that's going to make things significantly easier, chances are there's a catch, if not an outright blatant fib. The other thing that my economics teacher taught me very early on is what's called opportunity cost. Straight up cost is easy. Yes, sir, this car is going to be $20,000. What's the opportunity cost of buying this car? Well, sir, it doesn't have back doors, and your wife, and with her 37 babies that you've given her, is going to beat you resoundingly when you get home with this car that she can't put the babies in the back seat of. That's opportunity cost. The other way to look at it, and this is the way that I was taught, is that when I'm at work, I can't be at the beach surfing. When I'm at the beach surfing, I can't be at work earning money. And that is whichever way we go, we can go and surf, which is fun, but not earn any money. Not enough money to buy sex wax to put on our board. So we keep falling off. Embarrassing. So either way, every opportunity comes with a cost. And we need to be aware of that. That's how we find out how to work out what's the right solution, the better solution for our own personal needs. So that equally leads us to, are the choices that you are making, or more to the point, the choices that somebody else is trying to lead you to make, actually doing more damage than good? Commonly, you can find the offers or the things that are more damage than good by people focusing on what's going to be easy. Yeah, are amazing things easy? Do you reckon making Bohemian Rhapsody was easy for any of those guys in the room, whether that be the band, the recording engineer, the mixing engineer, the record producer, the record company guys? According to the film, the record company guys did not find Bohemian Rhapsody easy to deal with. It wasn't. It sure couldn't be easy to sing live. But Bohemian Rhapsody is an amazing piece of work. So if you want to deliver things that are amazing, let's take the word easy off the table. Everything or everybody who advertises stuff as easy, it's like you're going to be able to get banging tunes and hits in like 5 minutes. The opportunity cost there is probably far too high, and they probably know this. Another common one is pro. You'll see pro this, pro that, pro the other, all over everything. Avoid that one like the plague. You'll see as we move forward, I looked at some DAWs that their proness quotient apparently is incredibly high. But they're garbage. So please be incredibly careful with this lure of the free lunch. And the other one that I will bring up is going to make some people angry straight away, but please consider the argument that I'm putting forward, then consider whether it's the right way for you to go, and that is using loops. There is a great tendency, and the DAW sellers tend to really push this, in terms of using loops. Oh, okay, I want to make my piece of music. I don't really know how to make a drum pattern, so I'll just go download a loop. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, apparently that loop sounds pro. But the problem is, you haven't learnt any real skills. And the loop that you used is probably what's called low-hanging fruit. The most low-hanging fruit loop in the history of the world is what's called the Amen break. Go look it up. It was used everywhere. And there were funky drummer loops that were used everywhere too, so much so that they ended up with names and people started to go, oh, not a bloody funky drummer track. So use loops if that is the fundamental of what you do. Like if you're Public Enemy, then yes, loops were an integral part of that thing. But before you go automatically assuming that loops are the integral part of what your thing is, really step back and say, am I inhibiting my craft? Right, well, we've already covered some of these, really. So the big question here is a lot of people go, how much is my DAW going to cost me? And they worry so much about the costs. Again, don't forget opportunity cost. So we look at the big picture to help you achieve your real aims. And if you're coming to music because you want to make music, you want to express something, you want to have your shot at saying, I love you, baby, then that's what you're really here for. If you're here just to pile together loops, that's okay, but maybe what you're really interested in is having a laugh, and that's okay. You have a right to do that. But understand that open mic stages are not the same as Wembley or O2. And that if you're aiming for O2, you might do some open mics, but you're not going to stay there. Be honest with yourself as to which path you're going, because that way you can make a good choice at the beginning and you're not going to be trying to do something that doesn't suit. So, opportunity cost. What's the cost of free? There'll be a lot of pressure towards free this, free that. What's the cost of it? The models that we look at will be straight ownership, like you pay your X number of hundreds of dollars invariably, and you get yourself a DAW, a fully functioning DAW. That could be $400 up to $1,000. I don't necessarily recommend those $1,000 packages. Somewhere around the $400 is normally the right amount to get yourself a fully functioning DAW with everything you actually need. The next model is related to this and is more related to those high-cost Pro versions, Studio Pro, or full feature set, including the neighbour's kitchen sink DAWs, the subscription model. Now, the subscription model is, I'm not a big fan of it. The subscription model says, oh, well, the $400 is far too much for you. Why are they telling you this? That's a really dumb plan. The $400 is a lifetime license. You buy it, you own that version forever. If you choose to update, great. If you don't, that's it, you own it forever. That's a really good value model. The subscription model says you pay $20, $30, $50 a month, whatever, and you keep doing it. Look at the math. It's not good. They then lure you in with these, we give you everything. You will get so much stuff. It takes us straight back to the dangerous lure of easy and pro. Oh, well, it'll give me all of this extra stuff. I need all these things to sound pro. And I'm going to call BS on that. Hank Williams Sr., 1947 or so, was having hits. He was as big as what Elvis became in many ways, in the time and space. The recording gear at the time was really limited. They hung one microphone from the centre of the room and the guys stood around it. That was about it. They might have had a general tone, bass and treble knob. That was about it. They started to have general compressors, program compressors, just to make sure that things were roughly the same level when they went out over the radio, and that was it. It all came down to musicianship. Amazing stuff. Truly amazing stuff. The Beatles. Yeah, they started to microphone everything. But the early records, they had 4 tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, count them. There were 4 members, 4 tracks. There wasn't really any time, space, or energy to goof about, which is why they started to goof about and go mental. Lots of bands did, as they got themselves 8 and 16 tracks. It was like, ooh, look at that. We got extra tracks. We can do like silly stuff. Yeah. So yeah, you're going to have tracks and go revolution, revolution. But it didn't necessarily make music any better. Subscription models don't give you more stuff in a guarantee that you're actually going to make better work. They will just swamp you with a whole pile of, well, really, shiny garbage. Be cautious of subscription models, because the other side is, of course, as soon as you stop paying, you lose access to everything. That seems kind of wrong. Okay, yeah, it's kind of the same as you stop paying for your car or your house, you have to move out. But they're huge, huge expenses. $10, $20, $100, $500,000 expenses. This is a $400 expense. So be cautious of the subscription model, thinking that you're getting ahead by getting all this extra stuff they throw at you. If it was worth anything, they'd charge properly for it in the first place. And the other one that a lot of people miss is that when you get into the music business, probably one of the first important things that you're going to need, that you probably don't own already, is an audio interface. So that's the USB thing that you plug in, and you can plug microphones into it. You can plug the outputs into a high quality stereo. You will want a high quality stereo. You can get away with a poor quality stereo, but you will find its limits. But the audio interface is really important. And most audio interfaces will come with something bundled with it. That probably is your solution. So rather than obsessing about what DAW do I buy, maybe look at what audio interface you're going to get, and it probably comes with a cut-down version of a DAW, unless that DAW really doesn't suit your purposes. That's probably the one for you. So as I said, my approach is going to be different, and this is really trying to bring it all together to ask you to think differently, to ask you to answer this question for yourself differently. The best DAW is the one that helps you get your stuff done. The best DAW is not the one that's inherently the most pro and going to sound the best, because they all sound the same. They've all essentially got the same features. Music only exists one way. Audio only works one way. There are different ways of trying to get it there, like you can hit your drum with a small drumstick, or you can hit your drum with a really big drumstick, but it's still hitting a drum with a drumstick. So the different approach is to understand that real art is achieved sideways. So much of what we're taught to do is to try to come at things head on, as in, well, this was the obvious way of doing it. It doesn't work. If we try to attack some of these amazing songs like American Pie, Hotel California, Bohemian Rhapsody, head on, they don't actually make sense. When we start to come at them sideways, they start to make sense. Now, you probably have to come to terms with what I mean about coming at something sideways. It's a Zen thing. What's the sound of one hand? Listen up, Lisa. Listen up is not actually the answer to that question. You've got to come at this sideways. If you go head on saying, oh, well, I need to make a bigger kick drum, and you turn up all the bass, and then you compress it you compress it too much, you don't end up with a bigger kick drum. Your mix actually sounds smaller. You've got to work out how to come at it sideways. to make things work. If you want your track to sound like it has an immense kick drum, then you might just want to make something else in the mix seem relatively small. Like the snare. Increasingly, as techno went by, snares got smaller and smaller sounding. Do you know why that was? Because comparatively it makes the kick drum sound bigger. If your snare is really big, as in rock, the snare appears to be this big, and then, but you think coming head on that they've made the kick drum bigger. They sort of have, but nowhere near as much as they have made the comparison smaller. So just like in the first Captain America movie, there's the illusion of Puny Steve. It's still the same guy, still the same size. It's just they made him appear smaller in the video. So come at things sideways. Sideways means that when we're looking at our DAW, rather than looking at features, we should be looking at results. What are the results that I want to achieve? If the workflow of this DAW helps me achieve that easier, brilliant, that's probably the way to go. If the workflow of this DAW doesn't help me achieve that quite so easily, it doesn't mean you shouldn't get it. If that's the one that came with the best audio interface for your situation, then that's the way to go. You know, let life speak. Step away from the idea of perfect. Again, that's very tied to the best. There is no perfect. There is no such thing used by real audio engineers as perfect vocal chains. We don't even spend our time sitting around talking about chains of plugins. It's just such a loser approach to things. Yes, there will be a chain. I will put this and this and this and this, and I may well put things in a fairly similar order, but I don't download a preset or even save my own presets, because every song is different. Even if it's the same singer, it's different. For podcasts that I do for Breadline, same speaker over and over, but every time I go in and actually finesse, because you know what? Every single time that speaker will have got a slightly different sound. All they have to do is be looking a little bit more this way or that way or this way, and their mic sounds different, or more of a cold than they had last week. They sound different. So get rid of this idea of perfect, or that there is a single, we do this and we're golden. Nah, that's coming at it head on. You will lose every time. Open it up, learn your tools, because you are committing to a craft. If you're doing this for more than just having a laugh, then you're committing to a craft. Songwriting, song creation, mixing, whatever it is you're here to do, it's a craft. And there's an awful lot to learn, and the more you try to shortcut or come at it head on, which is a sneaky form of trying to shortcut, but pretend that you're not, oh, I'm attacking this head on, nah, you're setting yourself up to lose, to fall on your face. Come at it sideways, learn your craft by starting with the basics. And ultimately, whatever form you take, you are becoming a storyteller. So me as a mix engineer, I am there to help the song tell its story. Not to help the songwriter directly. That's just a really, really silly plan. My job is not to stroke the ego of my songwriters. My job is to help the song get told in as much power and glory and beauty as it can be. That'll probably stroke the ego of the songwriter when people listen to it and go, "Bugger me, that's cool." That's your job, learn to be a storyteller. So let's now, second part, start to look at some of the options that we're going to encounter. We'll first look at what I refer to as sub-DAWs. They're not the full thing. The full thing being Logic, Cubase, what have you. Sub-DAWs. Most of these are really what I would call not fit for purpose. Audacity is a common one. People get it for free, and if you can go ahead and do what you want, and great. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm not saying that it's poop. I'm just saying that it's probably one of the worst options that you could choose, bearing in mind that there are other options, and if you're completely unprepared to spend $1, there are equally free options which are actually designed for purpose. Audacity was not designed for this purpose. So I'm going to suggest you don't go there. There are apps like BandLab and things like that. Yeah, they're cute, but one of the problems is you're really not making music. You're probably just gluing things together. And you're having a laugh and you're having fun. Okay, great, but it's not really making music. You're kind of not going to get there. They're not designed to do the thing that you really need to do if you're looking to take a shot at being a Freddie Mercury or being the Eagles or whatever you want to take a shot at. Another one you'll commonly see advertised everywhere is NCH's Mixpad. Oh, just don't. Please don't. It is truly disturbing. Like Audacity, it started life as a wave editor, and they just put some features on top of it, and it is atrocious. It's just a waste of time. There is Akai's MPC Beats. I kind of wanted to like it compared to the first couple of things I've mentioned. Yeah, it at least resembles a DAW. It resembles a music making application, but I think you need to be very keyed into the whole MPC thing to actually make sense of it. I couldn't really make sense of it, so I don't give it a lot of credibility in terms of a full all-rounder DAW. If, however, that is your path to be doing the MPC thing, then maybe it's a thing that's worth looking at. It has no dollar cost attached to it, so provided it doesn't have too much opportunity cost attached to it, maybe it's a path for you. I'm going to say that out of this lot, the only one that I would give much credibility to is Soundbridge, which we'll step away and have a look at. So what I've done there is created one very short piece of music, not necessarily representative of what any of you will be doing at all, but just to give myself a chance to go, okay, how does this work? And so I don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every single time. So you'll hear the same piece over and over. Okay, Soundbridge. Soundbridge at the moment is free because they're busy developing their application. Every time you go to it, it seems to have more features. Good on them. But it's weird. It doesn't really follow all the proper conventions of a DAW. And you might go, oh, okay, that's cool because it's going to make it easier. No, it probably won't, because you've got a strangely limited feature set. The overall design, I've just got to say, is poor. It's very non-standard, which is part of what makes it poor. Honestly, I think that the time and energy you spend in this space will be a waste if you are serious about doing things. Yes, results can be made out of Soundbridge. I would say, yes, it is a functional DAW, but is it fully functional? Is it ready to go? I'm going to say no, not really. It's a little too limited. I also found that the inbuilt content, so instruments, effects, were just awful. I actually think they're unusable. So as you see, I replaced them. The synth was vital through the 3 lines. I replaced the reverb with my own. Can't remember what other effects. I may have used their delays. It's pretty hard to ruin a delay, but I wouldn't use them myself. There are so many better options. Go this way if you have to, but I think the sooner you're out of this market, the better. Which brings us to the entry-level DAWs. Now, not all of these are entry-level, but I've picked out things that you'll commonly encounter, things that are entry-level versions of larger DAWs. I haven't chosen every DAW, like Digital Performer's not here, but Digital Performer is probably not anybody's idea of an entry-level DAW. It's mostly used by high-end filmmakers. So, GarageBand. GarageBand is good, and it's the leader for Logic. big issue that you're going to have with GarageBand is you need to own a Bothanger. Sorry, I mean an Apple. And Apples are not cheap. If you happen to have one, then GarageBand is probably the most obvious place to start. There's a lot you can achieve with it, but there are some significant limits because they want you to go by Logic. Now, if you've already owning an Apple, then Logic is pretty cheap. It's become a powerful DAW. Well, it's always been a powerful DAW, but it's become a powerful DAW, and they've dragged themselves sort of kicking and screaming into the modern era fairly well as well. I haven't used it for an extremely long time, but there are worse problems you can have than using Logic. Traction's waveform, that comes under the it's a failed DAW. They give it away for free, but just like Soundbridge, most of the included content that comes with it, your effects and what have you, are just horrid. So you're going to struggle with it until you replace everything, but you're also going to waste a lot of time, because if you're a beginner, remember this is all about assuming you're a beginner, then you probably don't know what the right things, the good things to choose are. You probably don't really know how to choose a good delay line over one that's got flashing lights, but really is just horrid. So it's not one I'd recommend to anybody. I did recommend it a few times, and I feel bad about that I recommended it to them because it just seems broken. If you find it, and if you use it, and if you like it, great. Remember, I'm not saying that this is a given. I'm merely giving my opinions and trying to help somebody who's in the position of saying, well, okay, what's probably the right way to go? Cakewalk by BandLab. I did a big review on it, obviously really rubbed some people up the wrong way. Yeah, of course, you can do an awful lot with it, but bearing in mind other options, I'm not sure that it's the best way to go. Use it, come to terms with it if you like. You can do a lot with it, you really can, but I'm not going to suggest it's the best way to go. Then we come to the big DAWs, the fully fledged DAWs that are either very affordable or have an entry-level version. There's Pro Tools first. I haven't used Pro Tools for a very long time, but Pro Tools is a very well put together application. So if that's the path you think you're going to go down, then you might as well start on it now. Go for it. If you're not, it's probably not the path to go for, because Pro Tools is not necessarily the easiest to use, but there are a lot of things about it that are really good if that's the path you're going to go down. Studio One Prime. Studio One Prime is free, and that's part of why I say just don't waste your time with Waveform and Cakewalk. It does have some fairly hard limits, and you know what? I don't think that's a problem. I'm a big fan of what I will refer to as brutal crushing limits. Remember the Beatles, 4 tracks? Remember old Hank, 1 microphone hanging in the room? Look at where some of the most interesting music has come from in the pantheon of rock and roll. London, Seattle. These places suck. Buddhism comes out of a place that's not the nicest place in the world. So adversity actually brings us to be able to find creative solutions. That's your job as an aspiring artist, is to find creative solutions, not to go somewhere where everything's been solved, because then you won't be an artist. You won't be finding anything out of yourself. So Studio One Prime has some limits, and they seem pretty hard if you're comparing them to other things, but the program itself is classy, it's high quality, and once you reach that point where you go, okay, I'm able to walk past these limits, or I'm able to use everything here really well. At that point where you don't need the extra stuff is probably the time where you can start to say, okay, I'll invest in the extra stuff. So Studio One Prime is actually going to be my pick in this lot. You'll then hear Reaper. Sorry, these are all sort of basically listed in price order. You'll find Reaper, which people recommend. There's a Reaper review that I've done here. You see, it didn't work out well for me. I've spent a lot of time in Reaper since because I've had to do some mixes in it. Yes, there are a lot of really good things about Reaper, but Reaper is incredibly complex. If you don't spend half a day setting this thing up and knowing what choices you want to make when you want to set it up, chances are you'll die with it. So despite the fact that it seems cheap, it has no instruments, and you may well find that you struggle with the inbuilt effects as well, not because they're bad, simply because they're not easy to understand. They're obtuse. I'm going to say it's probably best avoided until you get to the point where you really need a D9 bulldozer. Then Reaper may well solve your problem very nicely. Acid, now owned by Magix, which is not a great sign because it means that Acid has finally failed and has been bought out by Magix. Yeah, they list these people who do amazing work with it, and more power to them. Good on them. But for $99, I think you've got far better options. Bitwig 16-track, really nice program. I'm going to show you through a little bit of that later. That is a classy application. The other two that are more expensive for their entry-level versions and have some kind of unusual limits, bearing in mind they're more expensive, is Fruity Studio or Fruity Loops. Some people love it. I've just never been able to get my head around it. I've never been able to make music in it. So it doesn't get much of a tick from me on anything other than, wow, that was a clever program. Ableton Live, again, it's more expensive than Bitwig. Bitwig is made by people who are ex-Ableton. I think it solves most of the problems that Ableton has. But if Ableton's the way you have to go because there's something that it really does that somebody else doesn't do, and I'm not sure that's ever the case anymore, then by all means go down that path. So let's go have a look at Studio One Prime, which is my pick out of this list. So Studio One, the Prime version, which is free. It has some strong limits. There's a fairly limited effect set, but that effect set gives you everything you actually need, especially at this level of where you're working. If you think that you need these full-on pro devices to get results, you're going to be going in the wrong direction. Remember, you've got to learn how to tell stories before you get into sidechaining and stuff like that, because otherwise you might learn to sidechain, but you probably won't know how to do it well, and then you'll be constantly going, I need another plugin, I've got all these problems with my sidechaining, man. And it's like you're not going out to write sidechaining, you're going out to tell a story. Your story might be of a club banger, great, no dramas with that, but if you can't make something that resembles a club banger that gets people interested enough to go, wow man, that's cool, whether you sidechain or not is not an issue. If the people that you are trying to appeal to are only going to pay attention to you if you sidechain, you are talking to the wrong people. You're spending too much time in groups and forums trying to appeal to people who are never going to be your fan because they're busy making their own music and they see you as a competitor. So focus on getting your stories fully made and up on Bandcamp and YouTube, and then talk to people who actually want to engage with your music, not other musicians who want to run you down. Studio One Prime gives you a very elegant studio with a very high feature set. It used to have limited tracks and what have you, I'm sure, but now it's sort of unlimited everything, but limited number of effects, and it actually only comes with one instrument, and you have to download some sounds into it. But the quality of the sounds that you get is good. It's high. Some of the things like us playing with a saxophone, and I was like, I was feeling pretty darn good about playing that saxophone. So there are some very high quality sounds in here, which if you're after just a general set of sounds, are going to see you go a long way. Now you've got a nice set of filters and LFOs inside that instrument that if you want to sort of dip your feet into altering those sounds a little bit, there's a long way you can go with that too. So while you might go, oh, but there's only one instrument and I've only got these sounds, there's a lot you can do. And especially if you're coming to this as in, yeah, I got me a guitar and I got me a bass and I got me a drum kit, then the recording and mixing side of Studio One is just great. So this is a good way to go. If you do get to the point or you do decide you want to go down this path and you go, yeah, but I want more in the way of synth because you can't bring in any VST to Studio One Prime and you're getting this thing for free and it's current software, it's not failed, for about $28 or something or other, around somewhere around $30, you can buy My Tai, which is a very nice and very capable synth. So Studio One Prime, especially if you added My Tai, will take you a very, very long way. See the limits that it imposes on you as cause to learn to really use your craft, because you don't actually need something else to get great results. Now the other DAW, before I come to my final sort of conclusions and suggestions, the other DAW that I think is a very high contender, as you saw in that list, is Bitwig. Bitwig 16-track. Bitwig 16-track is a very nice DAW, as I mentioned before. It comes from guys who are ex-Ableton Live, so they solved a lot of the difficulties that were happening there. Bitwig is still a developing DAW, but they've put a lot of focus into stuff that electronic musicians are going to want. The 16-track version is limited to 16 tracks, and you don't get everything. But I don't think you need everything. I think that what it comes with is great. The basic polyphonic synth that it comes with sounds lovely and is very, very capable. Their modulation system allows you to embiggen just about anything. Their effects are really, really nice. The workflow is good, and while the mixer doesn't look very pro, it gives you everything that you need. So with the possible exception of doing incredibly high track count mixers, which honestly you're not going to be doing now, 100 or so tracks, which might cause Bitwig to stutter a bit, there is nothing that you're going to find unpleasant at all. It's a very good DAW and highly tempted to go that way myself. All right, conclusion time. So my final suggestions out of these things that we've looked at, you probably worked them out already, is that if you're not willing to spend any money, you may have some issues, but if you really are in that position, then I think Studio One Prime is hands down the winner in terms of what you get, the quality of the DAW. We're not looking at a failed thing, we're looking at a piece of software that is growing and developing as we speak, and improving as we speak. I get to like it more and more as I look at what they're doing, where they're going, the decisions they're making, the reasoning behind things. It's a good bit of kit. Yes, it's got its limits, but it's free. And if you learn to work within those limits, you are going to be far better. This is the way you want to go if you're not able to invest any money. If you're looking to invest a bit of money, and it's about $100 at the moment, Bitwig 16-track gets my tick, because it's very affordable and you get a really impressive piece of software that, again, is lively, is vital, it's growing. And when you get to that point of going, look, okay, it's time for me to move up, if you like where they're going more than, say, Studio One, then you're going to be delighted with all the amazing extra things that come in. I will still very much say, if you're going to be serious about this, perhaps you should just commit fully in the first place. None of this messing about with entry-level DAWs and what have you. Why not just go all in? In which case, I'm going to say somewhere between even and choose what you like, Reason, Bitwig, and Studio One. So let's have a look at how this same thing has come up in Reason. So this is same piece in Reason. So as you see, it's really simple. I've deliberately kept it very, very simple because I tried to, in every instance, emulate what somebody might do, going back to my early 4-track days, keeping things really simple. The only complex bit is just in the mastering stage. I have gone a little harder in Reason just because it's already there for me. But the advantages of Reason are it comes with a really great set of instruments. It comes with a really good set of effects and processors. Some of them may not seem to be as fancy as some of the stuff that you might encounter elsewhere, but if you look at something and go, yeah, but why doesn't it have this extra feature? Yeah, that's for you to bring that extra feature in. So just here, with the compression and drive, I put them together. I don't need to go buy some fancy VST that's got compression and drive in one box like that's pro. I just put it together like it was done in the real world. Some people think that Reason is a sort of physical novelty, like a visual novelty, that all of this is designed just to be cute and a novelty. Yeah, maybe the wires swinging around is a bit of a novelty. But the reality is that it was designed to emulate how real things work in the real world whilst having it happen in a virtual space. And this is the reason why Reason is chosen by many training organizations as being the thing that they use to show people how this stuff's done. So unless they have a large form desk, an SSL or something or other, they're going to be putting these kids in front of. And even before they put these kids in front of an SSL, they'll actually put them in Reason because it's the closest analog to the real world. So they're all really positive things, coming from the real world. This is the closest to. Not because I hark back to those days, because I hated those days and I was looking forward to the day that I could have one computer and 3 screens. That was always my aim. And Reason's obviously allowed me to do that. But it's achieved that for me while still being able to give me access to the simplicity of a couple of synthesizers on the floor, with some wires between them, some guitar pedals, and 4 tracks of cassette were really awful. And this allows me to have the simplicity with all the advantages of digital. No hiss, unless I choose to put hiss in. I just wrote a piece where I chose to put lots of hiss in. It sounds great. So which way you go is entirely up to you. I've merely provided possible options based upon what I think gives you the most elegant solution for dollar points and entry-level points for somebody who obviously is a beginner. Remember, this is about for the beginner. Yes, you can go straight to Reaper if you know exactly how to fly that thing. If not, it's just faceplant. If you have any questions, ask them down below. Please don't ask very pointed questions, because obviously I'm not able to troubleshoot your situation. There are ways in which I do it, but it's a paid thing. You know, this is my livelihood. This is how I earn my dollars in music and in this stuff. Also, please don't be mean. If you feel like you need to throw hand grenades, probably do it somewhere else. You know, this is not the right place for that kind of thing. I'm sorry to have to raise it, and I was quite horrified with some of the stuff that came up, and the nastiness and the name calling and what have you. As I indicated earlier, you know, as musicians, we're here to make music, and if we are not making the music that we want to do, then we have to up our skills or change the way we approach things. Rather than coming at them head on, we need to learn to come at those things sideways. And again, my experience is that those who go to name calling and what have you, when I actually look at, well, what have these people done? You know, to be so high and mighty and ultimately correct about their opinion, they must be, you know, like Gene Simmons of Kiss or something. But they never are. So before you go down that road of waving pitchforks, throwing holy hand grenades, perhaps ask, hey, am I actually getting work done? Because if you're not getting work done, then you shouldn't be wasting your energy on righteous anger at somebody. Look at why it's triggered you. And then ask a question around, well, how do I move past this block that I have? Because that's the stuff I love to specialize in. As you know, with a record producer hat on and a paying client, my job is to help people get over those obstacles so that they can deliver a result. You know, my job is to help people tell their story. So if you're feeling the need to throw a hand grenade at me, stop. Ask yourself the question, where's my real block? And then maybe I can actually help you with that. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Also, pop over to higherhertz.com and maybe subscribe yourself there. You have a great day.